In a world where it takes 20 earthbenders to move one single rock. In a world where every character's name is pronounced incorrectly. Exclusively in theaters 2010. Experience the experience of a whitewashing experience of epic proportions. This experience is a M. Night Shyamalan experience.
Growing up, I watched a lot of M. Night Shyamalan movies. He was very inspirational to me as a young kid who wanted to make films. And I remember thinking, if this guy can do it, then I can do it. And that followed me into my adulthood. M. Night Shyamalan truly is a prominent but also polarizing figure in the world of film. Whenever we think about his name, unfortunately, the first thing we think about is his 2010 adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't normally believe in objective opinions in film, but I think we can all agree objectively that this adaptation was not the one, for many reasons.
Are you the Avatar, Ong?
What is it, Ong?
My name is Ong.
Ong.
My name is Ong.
And we all have probably found ourselves asking this question. What happened? What went wrong? This video is going to answer that question, but in order for that to happen, we really have to dig deep and go back to the beginning. M. Night Shyamalan released a couple films before his big break. Films that aren't really relevant to this video, so I'm not really going to mention them. The Sixth Sense was released in 1999, and it truly was one of a kind. There was something really refreshing about The Sixth Sense. It completely changed the game. That plot twist, right? On top of all that, The Sixth Sense was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Not even a year later, M. Night Shyamalan released his next hit, Unbreakable. It was praised for its originality and its different take on the superhero genre. 2 years after that, in 2002, M. Night Shyamalan released Signs. Now, this is the movie that I personally resonated with a lot because it was one of the first horror movies I saw in theaters. And I wouldn't even really consider it a horror movie. It was definitely more of a thriller, but to a kid, you know? So despite having mixed reviews, it was a commercial success. It was known for its impactful suspense and really unique way of storytelling that was not really more of like a aha twist, but more of this deeply spiritual, everything was laid out and happened for a very particular reason. And this is something that M. Night Shyamalan would explore in future films as well. All that to say that M. Night Shyamalan's early career was very promising. The next phase of M. Night Shyamalan's career, or what I call the middle of his career, would be an era of experimentation, but also polarization. This was around the time that people really kind of started to question his abilities. The Village was released in 2004, and it was an extremely unique film in the sense that the twist didn't happen at the end, but actually somewhere near the middle, and the rest of the film plays out with you already knowing what's going on, but it's still suspenseful anyway. Reviews for The Village were also mixed in the sense that, you know, people enjoyed the atmosphere and the suspense that it brought and loved the twist, but a lot of people criticized the shaky plot, which I don't agree with. I thought that it was very well fleshed out, and personally, and a lot of people feel this way too, I think it's actually one of the strongest films of his career. 2006 is when things start to get more polarizing. Poor M. Night Shyamalan. People start to kind of, you know, really turn on him in a sense when he released Lady in the Water. Lady in the Water is probably one of the most quintessential M. Night Shyamalanian films in the sense that it really expanded on this everything has a meaning, everything has a purpose that Signs had. Every single person was assigned a very particular and specific role, you know, by God or the universe or whatever you want to call it. I've always wondered, and you know, I watch this movie regularly, and every time I watch it, I'm like, I just don't understand why people hated it so much. I think a lot of the problems that came from the criticisms regarding The Lady in the Water is that, you know, I just don't think a lot of people get M. Night Shyamalan and what he's trying to do and what stories he's trying to tell. It was criticized for its narrative style, but it has a cult following. And I'm not the only one. There's a whole community of people like us who love that film. But then he released The Happening in 2008, There was a fundamental shift in how he wrote dialogue. It started with Lady in the Water, and it really became so noticeable in The Happening. When it came to dialogue and character portrayal, everything just felt so unnatural. It's almost like he's an alien who's just like studying how people talk, and then he writes a script based off how he thinks that people talk. It's a really bizarre, and obviously we get a lot of that in Last Airbender, but we'll get there. The Last Airbender was M. Night Shyamalan's major setback. His probably, if there is anything that's considered career ruining, I think it's this. So as we all know, M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender was an adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender? Avatar: The Last Airbender, a Nickelodeon animated series that was wildly popular. You all know this. There was and there's still, even to this day, huge fan base for the series. Huge. Let's just say that expectations were high. Expectations were so high. Since M. Night Shyamalan was known for his psychological and supernatural films, his involvement with this movie became instantly intriguing by many people. People were like, M. Night Shyamalan, he's gonna make this? Even if they weren't fans of Shyamalan, I think that they were just excited that this movie was being adapted, that this series was being adapted into a movie. We all know what followed. We all know. So, what exactly went wrong here? Literally, this movie was released, and I remember watching I guess it was a screening. People were coming out of the theater and they were just really upset.
It sucked.
It sucked. It's terrible.
The movie could have been as bad as it is right now, and if they had just called him Aang once!
I didn't even see it in theaters. I didn't even see it until it came out on DVD. That's how old I am. My husband saw it in theaters because he was a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. He's 5 years younger than me, so when I was 19... Oh God, I don't want to say that out loud. And I was 24. He was 19. Was he barely legal? Look, okay, never mind. That's a conversation for another movie review. Maybe a movie review of Black Snake Moan or something like that. I'm done. We're done with this. We're done with this video. This movie was a significant departure from M. Night Shyamalan's comfort zone, in a sense, where he was known for these deeply psychological films that were based on character development. They were very character driven. Even though he was, at this point in his career, a Hollywood filmmaker to an extent, he made films like an indie filmmaker. This movie obviously would rely on large amounts of CGI, something that M. Night Shyamalan just wasn't really used to. Of course, he used special effects in his movies, but not to this degree. I think he also really struggled to condense such a complex lore across multiple seasons into one film. Even though there was supposed to be a sequel that never happened for obvious reasons, but so much was crammed into this film and not in a way that worked. Now, I think the most common problem with this film would come from its whitewashing situation. The casting of predominantly white actors for roles that were predominantly Asian or indigenous. The Last Airbender brought these things into the conversation because that's how noticeable it was. So M. Night Shyamalan and crew were being accused of racism and whitewashing and all kinds of stuff. It was wild. Critical reception was, it was panned by critics. Criticisms were found on the screenplay, the direction, the acting, pacing, and deviation from the source material. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. That's a lot of problems, and we're not even done. We're not even done with the problems. Fans of the series were particularly disappointed with the adaptation's failure to capture the essence of the original. Despite being financially successful, it couldn't offset the negative reception. And for obvious reasons, greenlighting a sequel, that just wasn't in the cards at this point. The landscape of what constitutes as viral was very different, but this was definitely viral in the sense that everybody was talking about how bad this movie was, even people who had no idea about the source material. It was just a popular topic. Poor M. Night Shyamalan, oh my God, poor guy, he just wanted to make a movie. He has recovered, which we'll talk about in a minute, but in the meantime, in hindsight, very recently, it might have been either this year or last year, I can't remember exactly when, but there was an interview where M. Night Shyamalan was reflecting on his previous mistakes when it came to this film. And what he said, well, for one, he admitted that he was not the right fit for a film of this scale and this subject matter. And he recognized that his strengths laid in more intimate, character-driven stories. And he said something that really struck me as really interesting. He said that this was not his world. That he was not meant to make a movie like this. And I couldn't agree more. This is not his world. Not just The Last Airbender, but Hollywood in general. Unfortunately, this guy had success right at the beginning of his career. His peak was right at the beginning. Rather than having a slow build up into fame, he became known for his first few films. And that puts you in a really particular position, because the thing is, when we think about other auteurs like David Lynch, Darren Aronofsky, Oliver Stone, but we think about all these auteurs, right? These filmmakers that are known for their particular style, and their styles might not be everyone's cup of tea. M. Night Shyamalan was meant to be, in my opinion, a deeply underground indie filmmaker. Because of his mainstream success so early in his career, he was never able to comfortably fit in the underground world. And because of that, he couldn't comfortably fit in the mainstream world either. He knows that because he's admitted several times that he does not fit in. And I resonate with that because I definitely don't fit in. The critics never liked him. Audiences were always split on him. Speaking of split, that was a huge comeback for him. Like, I think it's one of his best films, and it didn't have that weird cheesy dialogue in it. It was fantastic. We're talking about a filmmaker here who's deeply polarizing. Like I said a few minutes ago, critics never cared for him. Audiences were always split on him, and he could never really catch a break after his early successes. And then he's given this opportunity to make this big Hollywood picture. In his mind, he's thinking, finally, I can make a movie their way. I can make a movie that is big budget, CGI, like a big, almost like a superhero film, where we've got all these special effects, and, it's going to have a huge box office return, and it's going to, let people know that I'm a serious filmmaker and that I'm actually, What people need to understand, though, is that M. Night Shyamalan's story, his career, everything that we just laid out today, everything that happened with The Last Airbender is a true testament of what happens when you try to take a chance by selling out. You need to be authentic to yourself. As an artist, I need to be authentic to myself. And I think of what happened with M. Night Shyamalan as a cautionary tale to any artist who feels the pressure of trying to do something that the world wants you to do, instead of doing what you feel you need to do, and to tell the stories that you want to tell and that you want to write. For example, the film that I am currently wrapping up right now. It's called Culturegeist, and it will be released in the spring of next year. We worked really hard on it, and I'm really excited to announce that it will be a YouTube original. I will be releasing it on here like I always do, because I believe that art should be free for all. And that's my mission. That's what I do here. And anyways, thanks guys for watching this video on my, this little video essay, I guess, about M. Night Shyamalan and The Last Airbender. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, also, real quick, this is a different setup. I've got my green screen. I don't have my headphones or microphone or anything. I'm going to be changing locations of filming several times over the next few weeks. One, because, I'm going to be changing offices. I'm also going to be moving to a new house, and then eventually I'm going to be working from home. So I'm going to be changing a lot. So I'm just going to be bringing my green screen with me wherever I go for videos, so that way it kind of somewhat looks consistent. And then I'll let you guys know whenever everything is permanent in my new setup over the next few months. But again, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. See ya.